So welcome everybody, thanks for joining. Yes, the Land Decoded webinar. So today we're going to be talking about all things land, innovation, natural capital, AI. Hi John. Just to let everyone know that we are recording this webinar, but the Q&A section won't be included, so feel free to speak out, and it won't be made available online publicly. So the way that we like to run our webinars, if you've been before, you might know, but we like to just keep things really open and informal. So please do ask any questions at any point, pop your hand up, put them in the chat if you don't want to turn your microphone on. We'll answer as we go or at the end of each topic. But yeah, we want to keep it a bit of discussion. We won't just be going through slides today. So hopefully it'll be nice and relaxed and nobody can shy away from asking any questions. So the way that we structured it very loosely is we've got 3 different sections today. So firstly, it'll be a discussion with speakers Freddie and Mark, who I'll introduce in a minute, but we'll be talking about the growing role of technology, specifically for land and climate and natural capital, includes AI. And also then hopefully get some tips from Freddie and Mark about how to stay in tune with innovation changes that are happening in the sector, so you can take something away with you today. And finally, we'll be doing a short showcase of Rethink Insights, where you can see that kind of thing in action. So lovely photo of Freddie and Mark here. You might be able to spot them in the audience as well, but this is who you'll be hearing from today. So I've obviously introduced them there, but I think it would be best for them to introduce themselves, because obviously I've done a small introduction of all things tech and innovation for Mark, but he might be able to give a bit of a better background about what he does, as well as Freddie. So over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Tessa. So a little bit about me. I've been playing with computers since the early 80s. It's a bit of an obsessive hobby of mine. It turned into a career somehow. And in 2019, I founded an AI company called Aveni, which is still going strong. It's got about 50 people now. But here's the thing, AI then versus AI now, it's completely night and day. Even back then, we were proud of ourselves for like identifying a cat, but now it's completely different. So when my co-founder Zoe and I sat down, me with all the tech, and Zoe with 20 years in land management, estates and policy, we asked ourselves a question, which was, where's the Venn diagram of overlap where we can actually move the needle and do something meaningful? We kept coming back to the same problem. As land professionals are drowning in data, satellite imagery, boundary records, climate predictions, public data sets, they're all sitting in separate data silos and nobody's connecting them. So we asked them, nobody's asking the question actually, Mark, which is really, how can we bring these together? And we thought with the tool that we have now, that situation is totally insane. We can fix that. So we did, and we will Rethink Carbon, and that's why I'm here. Freddie?
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I'm Freddie. I'm head of product at Rethink Carbon. I've been at Rethink for about 3 years now. My background, I've worked for about 10 years in kind of in the land management, I guess natural capital more recently, but my kind of main focus and interest is really around maps and GIS. And as Mark said, he loves tech. I kind of love GIS and maps and nerd out over that. So I love all kind of things, data and mapping, and yeah, do a lot of that at Rethink and working with our customers with the products as well. So we're going to dive into a little bit of that shortly. So probably without further ado, Tessa, I will kind of kick off, and then we'll go into our kind of panel discussion. So so the way we're going to play this is I'm just going to share my screen for a couple of minutes. And we're going to be doing a demonstration of Rethink Insights today, which is our recently launched platform. So this is accessible on our website, and it's kind of a pay-per-project model. But to kind of show you how live this is, and this is always risky, so hopefully it goes smoothly today, we're going to run 2 or 3 projects in real time of areas people have mentioned on the chat, just to kind of show you what comes back and how it works in real time, if you like. So the idea is we put in a boundary. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to run. So we're going to put 3 through, leave that running for a few minutes, have our panel discussion, then come back to the results in the second half of this demo. So I'll kick off. This is Rethink Insights. So I've got a couple of my existing projects here. And sorry, I'll share my screen again because that tends to happen. We're going to create a new property today. So I'm going to kick off actually with Ian's recommendation of the Isle of Mull, just to kind of get us started. That could be quite interesting. And then I'll take a few recommendations from you guys in a second. So I'll just kick off with that. So this is the property name. We can click through, and what we can do is we can create our red line boundary. So if that's an estate, if it's a catchment, if it's a local authority, you can put any kind of boundary into the platform. There's different ways you can do this. You can upload your own GIS data if you've already got it. You can use kind of templates from the Forestry Grant Scheme. Or if you're in England as well, if you're a farm, you can put in your SBI, so the Small Business Identifier, and that will pull in your farm boundary, and you can run that as your project as well. So there's different ways to get started. I am doing this from scratch today, so let's just home in Isle of Mull, and we're going to use this as a bit of context. So what I'll do, I'm able to just home in this kind of corner for today. We're going to start from scratch, so I'll just quickly draw a boundary. We're going to go quite wide today just to get kind of a variety of different habitats and land use. Let me just kind of do something like this to keep it quite interesting. Very, very rough boundary, but hopefully you kind of get the idea that this is kind of how it could work. So we'll go with that and we'll save the boundary. So 4.7 thousand hectares. We'll go through and we'll continue. You can also set goals. So essentially what it's going to do is it's going to analyze that land and come back with kind of natural capital analysis and reports. But you can also say, what do you want to achieve from this particular project? So we might say we're looking at carbon storage, carbon sequestration, and maybe habitat management. We'll continue on that. So that looks great. We'll proceed to checkout and we'll finish up on there. Go to the payment screen. I'm going to put in a code today. I'm afraid this will deactivate soon, so I'm afraid it's not accessible for everyone, but we can put that in and I'll just order that and we'll get through from there. So very, very quick, easy way to kind of set up your property and to create that. Final step is to press analyze. That goes away and starting to automate that in the background, and we'll get our results very, very shortly. So I'll maybe do another one or two, depending on how we get on with time. Does anyone in the kind of want to shout out if they've got somewhere in England that they might want to look at as an example? Any ideas?
Do feel free to shout out, even if it's not your favourite place. I won't put pressure on anyone to pick their favourite one. But if nobody else has one, feel free to use Malham Cove as an excellent geological site.
Okay.
So,
Anyone want to shout?
I don't want to jump too soon.
In Cornwall.
Sorry, I missed that.
Cornwall is a stunning corner.
Anywhere in Cornwall, in particular?
Maybe Land's End.
Land's End, let's try that. A good one.
Undeveloped agriculturally, quite wild.
Cornwall. Am I putting that in wrong? Sorry, that's my fault. Let's see if anything. No. Oh, there we go. Cool.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Good stuff. So maybe we'll go for a little bit of coastal, some agriculture, and kind of see what comes back. Because maybe peatland around here as well. So maybe let's have a quick look at kind of landscapes. That could be quite interesting. We'll go for a bit of the cove around here. This could be huge, but let's try it. Push it to the limits. That could be quite interesting. So we'll go with something like that. Grand. So what's that? Let's say boundary. Okay, 1.5 thousand hectares. That's great. We'll run that through again. And maybe let's look at biodiversity enhancement. Let's see if there's any kind of flood management around there as well. You can also put your own goals in. So you can press other, and you can type in your own goal, but we'll put that off today. So great. We'll finish up on that. Put that one through as well. And go for that. So info. What do we reckon? One more? Or do you think that's enough? It's sort of a good starting point. Has anyone else got a burning site they've got in mind?
Sandra, I can see you itching to get in.
Sandra, go on. Yeah, come on.
Go on, Sandra.
Oh, sorry, I think you're on mute, Sandra. Pressure's on.
Oh, you're still on mute.
Maybe type instead.
Yeah, in chat.
Sandra, you're Cumbria way, aren't you? I think so. Shall I go? Let's try that. Let's put Cumbria. We'll go for something around my neck of the woods, so we can maybe go close to. I think you're actually kind of down here this way. Is that right, Sandra? Lancaster. Yeah. Let's go for something like this. Draw from scratch. Okay, we'll just go quite broad here around this village. Great. Let's go water quality, HOA solutions. And we'll go for that. Brilliant. So thank you for bearing with me whilst I just process that. It'll be more interesting when we get the results back shortly, but we'll just finalize this one and then we'll move to our panel discussion. You can see it takes literally a minute or so just to do that. So that's brilliant. That's going to start running in the background. It's already started to do some analysis. So I'll stop sharing for a moment and hand back to Tessa.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. Good to get some interesting places in, a bit of variation across all of them as well. So excited to see that. So yeah, we'll start with it. We've called it a panel discussion, but that sounds quite formal. We're not about that. So we're just going to basically have a bit of a chat here from Freddie and Mark. Again, feel free to pop any questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring that, and or just put up your hand or speak out. You can interrupt us. We won't mind. So I'm just going to ask a really broad question to you both. So it may seem to some that tech and the natural environment are completely different worlds away, and they don't have anything in common. So could you just introduce us as to similarities between them, how they go together, and what would you say is the most important technological advancements that we see with that partnership between the two at the moment?
I can just kick off here, I suppose. So we think about it, a consultant used to spend days just analysing the woodland boundary. They can now do it with technology in like 30 minutes. They can validate the AI analysis and add on expertise. And that time saving means money or more time to work on clients or deeper work. And it's very true that natural capital systems are really complex. And trying to spot all the patterns as a human is really, really difficult. And I think AI is brilliant at all that tech heavy lifting and pattern finding.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's that combination of on the ground plus the kind of the data coming in. And I think the last sort of 5 years, things are moving more kind of digital in the land management kind of sector. I think we're moving forwards quite quickly now, especially with kind of natural capital projects and the data requirements around those. But I think the amount of data that's being collected as well and can be used, I think there's some sort of stat, I think, with satellite imagery that hundreds of terabytes of data are collected every day. So it's how we can utilize that and what do we do with all that data and what does it mean and how can we interpret that as well, I think, which is important.
Totally. I also think that it's made it more accessible to everyone, to like the average person, because previously you had to have a specialization in QGIS or GIS skills or SQL skills for databases. Now you can just ask like plain English queries, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I guess that's what we'll look at Rethink Insights shortly, but I think one of the reasons we sort of built Rethink Insights as well was when we originally kind of analyze data or present data, it would be great to get 100 hectares of soil or whatever. That was brilliant. But quite often it was, what does that data mean? Or if you're not used to that data, how do you interpret it again? So that kind of plain language that you mentioned, Mark, is kind of what we're going with this product as well and the way forwards, I think. So yeah.
It's also really important with groups which, again, don't necessarily have the expertise, but they have the knowledge. So communities who want to do something, but again, there's often tools which are great at doing certain jobs, but sometimes with all that data, you just need something comprehensive, 100%. And I think that leads me on to, we've obviously talked about the data, but there's the element of human influence, and you might have all heard the term human in the loop, which is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. So natural capital is really dynamic, it's complex, and there's researchers and people who have developed their skills, they have a lot of knowledge, they're always learning. So how important is it to integrate that human knowledge alongside using tools like AI?
So AI doesn't know your land. It knows about land, it can analyze your land, it can look at the soil, it can look at all those kind of things, but it doesn't know what your planning constraints are, what your neighbours' concerns are, what your 5-year vision is. It doesn't understand all that stuff. What it does is it surfaces options faster so that humans can make those decisions faster without any sunken cost. Know what you think about that, Freddie?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think there's the balance, isn't there, between on the ground kind of human collected kind of data and surveys, which, not to say as opinionated or whatever, but there's a degree of, there can be some subjectivity to on the ground data, and I think that's why it's really important to match up, you know, when you've got satellite data or kind of objective data with kind of the experience and expertise of people on the ground who've been doing this for a long time. It's the marrying up of those two, the blend of AI, which makes it powerful. I think you need both of those, I think, to make any kind of decision as well.
For sure. And you know, it used to be, I remember when we first started on this, before AI got like to where it is just now, you would get different answers every time you ask the question.
Yeah.
And it's more so with humans. You can run the same question through a human 2 months apart and get completely different answers. And AI used to do that too, but now it's getting more consistent and it's getting explainable as well. So I think it's really good to help with consistency of analysing a data set, repeatability, and getting some kind of independent truth about something rather than just the bias of somebody's opinions, you know?
Yeah. I guess it'd be good to hear from people as well in a second, but I think the way it's moving, isn't it? Like you say, there used to be kind of inconsistencies in replies and what came back, but I guess the way we're moving forwards is all around the automation and repeatability of kind of workflows. So if you are carrying out similar surveys or reports frequently, it's kind of setting up a nice workflow. And we'll maybe come on to this a bit more detail in a minute, but how you can kind of run that through in a consistent manner to kind of get similar results and information out of that, which is a huge time saving as well. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really insightful. I think it's always important to address the topic of any skepticisms around AI because things pop up, whether it's environmental concerns or the reliability. I know we've touched on reliability already and comparing it to human error, but you got any points that you'd like to include about how we can open our minds, but whilst also being mindful of how we use AI?
Freddie?
Yeah, I think you're right to acknowledge it, Tessa, and I think you've got to use it in kind of a sensible way. I think, you know, we know it's kind of resource heavy, but at the same time, there are huge efficiencies that can be made from these kind of AI tools. I guess a prime example is we're currently part of the Rethink Codes kind of platform that we're developing with the Woodland Carbon Code and Peatland Code, and you know, there's a lot of documentation, a lot of checking of documents that is done manually at the moment. It takes a lot of time, and it can, you know, create a bit of a backlog in projects getting through. So it's how can we improve that? How can we automate a lot of that and save time efficiencies, but also get more projects through? So there's more kind of nature-based and kind of carbon projects going through, which is benefit for the environment as well. So I think there's definitely a balance, and it's how you use it. But maybe Mark, you could add to that.
Yeah, I think the real risk isn't really AI getting it wrong. It's using AI thoughtlessly. So it's assuming that it's right. Like it's either going to give you an answer and you're just going to run with that answer without questioning it. But it's very much like when you use Google and you're searching for something, don't just take the first answer you get. You've got to like deep dive in it. You've really got to question it and get involved with it. So it takes a little bit of effort to, I suppose, get AI to be thoughtful. Yeah, but I think personally, we've seen more risk from old data and manual guesswork than we have from AI-assisted analysis. It's almost like having a little data scientist, or maybe a junior one, beside you the whole time. You can just set it off to do pattern matching at scale for you. You know, and that maybe gets the context that we miss as humans. So
yeah.
As an advisor, not as a decision maker, I think that's the key to it at the moment. Maybe that will change in the future.
And the whole thing, it learns over time, doesn't it? You know, the more you do it, the more you run it, the more you tweak it, the more it's going to improve, and you can tailor it to give you the results you need, really. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really, really great. Does anyone have any questions at this point? I haven't seen any. Oh, there we go. Ian. Perfect. I think it's a question. I haven't actually opened the chat just yet.
This and some examples. So if you can just bear with me a moment. Share my screen. Okay, so this is the Rethink Insights platform that we were on earlier. You can see my 3 properties have finished. It's actually already given me a few insights that it's found at the top here. You can kind of see a preview of some of the data. So we'll kick off with this property in England, Cumbria, so the one Sandra sort of half mentioned. We'll have a look and explore this in a bit more detail. So what it's doing is we've packed the platform full of about 100 plus data sets that are open public data sets. We also do some of our own analysis on top of that with things like slope analysis, terrain, aspect, things like this as well. But rather than just presenting the analysis, we're reporting on that, and we're making sense of that data. And we can also ask it questions and query this data as well. So here you can see we've got the Cumbria project. So it's telling me a little bit about this property, this project. You can tell already that it's in Lancashire, so it knows where it is if you like. And it's pulling out a few kind of key stats at the top here. So moderate flood risk affects 3% of the land, for example. And we get some kind of key stats here as well. This is almost my executive kind of summary page. So it tells me kind of a few kind of key bits of detail and overview about the site. But what we're going to do is jump into the kind of the 8 categories that we kind of set up. So I just jump through to here. So here you'll see telling us a little bit about water. And as I scroll down the page, it's starting to tell me different things that it's found, broken into these categories. So the really nice thing about the platform is everything it finds, all the data sets it finds, it links these in the description. So the land holding overlaps 3 main water catchments, and it highlights this layer. So you can see as I hover this layer on the map, it starts to bring that up on the map. So I can either hover over it and see that, or I can click that layer on and we can see that turned on. So you can see the map here is kind of a nice black and white map, which is useful for some data like rivers, for example. This is a little bit faint, so what I'm just going to do is switch that across to 3D satellite for a second, and now we can start to see these catchment boundaries in a bit more detail. So you can immediately see it's telling me information about the catchments and about the hydrology in here as well. So next up, we've got things like total lengths of rivers it's found, and it's listing off a number of kind of key rivers or kind of rivers it's found within that data set. And we can start to visualize those. So as I move around the map, we can also put this into 3D satellite mode, and we can start to look at this and where those rivers are on the map. At any point, we can also put this into kind of full screen and start to look at this. And we can take screenshots or kind of map prints, and we can put those into our own report at any time as well. That's great. So it's also telling me a little bit about flooding in this particular area. So we've got the flood risk zones as well. So I can turn this layer on as well. So we can now start to look at the river watercourses and the effects of flooding. If we zoom out a little bit, we can start to see a lot of flooding around here, but also along the main watercourses around here as well. You can also click on the data, and it gives you all the kind of the analysis and information attributes around that data set as well, which is quite interesting, depending on which kind of data set you click on. So regional water resilience, this is also talking a little bit around what things could be done. And you can see it's starting to pull out kind of things like the English Woodland Creation Offer, which is a flood risk management kind of grant that flags up areas that could be suitable for woodland planting, and there's grant information associated to that. So again, it's highlighting this, and we can look at the legend on the right, see where there's opportunity for floodplain for woodlands and opportunity for wider catchment woodlands as well. So really, really nice way of kind of interacting with that data. I'll let you have a bit of a read through in a second, but maybe we'll flip through to the woodland section next, have a little bit of a look at what comes back in here as well. So I might just pause for a second. I know it's quite difficult to demo this sometimes because there's so much kind of text, and it's you need to kind of read it. So I'll just pause there for 30 seconds and let people just kind of have a quick read through of that, if you like to. Otherwise, just do your own thing. But it can be quite interesting to see kind of what results come back and have a read through. So I'll just let you do that. I'll just hover over some layers as that's happening. So you can see in here as I hover over riparian, it's identifying those areas. Again, it's found England Woodland Creation Offers in here, riparian buffers. And it's also talking about things like the agricultural land classification soils and what grades they might be and how that affects woodland planting and things like that as well. So I hope that gives you a little bit of time just to read kind of what the analysis comes back with. And what's really nice is, this is kind of in the platform at the moment, at any point you can just copy that and you can paste it into your own document. So you can kind of create and design your own natural capital reports and analysis as well. And similarly, as I mentioned, you can take a little screenshot. You can add that to your own documents as well. Grand. So I'll just kind of flick through a couple more sections and we'll kind of move on to the second site. So again, looking at kind of agricultural land. Again, it's talking about kind of the agricultural land classification information in here. Also, we have information around topsoil carbon concentration, so understanding how much carbon there might be within the soil, giving estimates on that. And again, you can click on the actual map as well to see how much carbon could be potentially stored in the soil there as well. We also have information in England around the crop maps. This is the crop map of England, 2024. So again, if I open this up, we can start to see what kind of crops it believes and are identified on the map. So again, we can start to see where there could be areas of trees, grassland, or other crops that have been found as well. At any point as well, you can change your base maps if you want to present it in different ways. You can put on the OS raster data, for example, and start to investigate this. And you can maybe put on the let's look at the upland peat data. So this is again a natural England data set that allows you to kind of see where there might be peatland restoration opportunities. So this, for example, is pulling out how many hectares of gullies have been found across the site. And again, we can start to zoom in and see where they are. Again, potential opportunities for restoration and thinking about things like the peatland code as well. And what I'll do, we'll probably a quick summary of that property in Cumbria, which is interesting. We'll jump across to one in Scotland, so people are more familiar with Scotland or Scottish layers. We can sort of differentiate between the two. And then we'll look a little bit around the AI feature and how we can kind of question and query the map as well. So Isle of Mull should be an interesting one, so let's open this up. Grand. So we've got, again, a 4,000 hectare property with kind of a mix of woodland, peatlands, and the protected designations, which is great. So we'll again go into our Insights tab here and start to have a look at some of the key categories. So any flooding in this particular property, yes, it's found Seeper River depth, flood risk high, 24.53 hectares. And we're going to again start to see where that is on the map and start to see how that might affect things on the map as well. What's quite interesting, maybe not from this property, but we also are taking this kind of analysis and insights a little bit further. So rather than just presenting flooding, we're also saying, you know, what kind of assets or infrastructure are at risk as well. So things like properties or road networks, and we also kind of run analysis on that, which is quite interesting. Again, you can start to see kind of the high flood risk, medium, low, and even things like kind of wetland inventories as well. So you can open this up and start to look at kind of the wetland inventory from Seeper as well. So here, for example, infrastructure at risk, I think, do we have any? So yeah, it's telling us actually it's found fire station, police station, post office, etc. Do we have buildings? It's quite interesting. It can actually start to pull up important building layers. So again, if those are at risk, it can flag those up, as well as things like open roads as well. So we can start to see the kind of the road network and how that might be impacted by things like flooding as well. So that could be quite interesting. I'll go through a few other different categories in here. So again, if we're doing kind of a constraints checks, if we've got a woodland or peatland project, we kind of want to know the impact of any designations on the site. We can start to look at things like designations and the analysis this comes back with. So again, we can see a whole list of different designations that affect this particular site. So we can hover over the SAC layer. I can click that on, start to see where that overlaps. Click on this, get more information about the name of that. Special protection areas, triple SIs, local landscape areas, geological conservation sites, local nature conservation sites. So you picked a good spot here, Ian. This is quite interesting. So some good information coming back. And I guess what's really nice about this is you can see this information, you can view it, you can interact with it, you can report on it. But I'll just kind of mention how our AI feature works as well here. So alongside all of these automated tools that we're running in the platform, you also have an AI assistant built into the platform, which is really cool. So you can pull this up and have this alongside your map at any point. So essentially what this is based off is all the data that's been analyzed for the property. So I could say, to start off with, please list all the designations affected by this property. Just if you want a quick list or kind of, you know, summary of the impact. So go away, and it should give me a list in a second. And yeah, it starts to kind of give me a breakdown of all the different things it's found. It can also go into a bit more detail about the names of those designations as well. and it starts to kind of break down all of that information. So going into quite a lot of detail there, which is quite nice. So all that kind of attribute and database information behind these data sets is also kind of within the data. So we can actually query it and ask it a little bit more, which is quite nice. You could also, if you're doing a report, you could say, do you mind putting that into a table for me? And the whole thing is iterative. So you might try it once, it will like give you some good results, but you kind of need to kind of question it and query it in different ways. And you can expand on what you've kind of asked previously. So now we've got a really nice table of kind of information here, which is quite cool. So another example we can maybe try is we've got peatland maybe on this site. So we could say, I know that peatland restoration is difficult in areas of slope over, sorry about my spelling, 30 degrees. Can you give me slope analysis breakdown in a table, sorry, in a table, and how this might affect peatland and restoration? We'll run that first. We can also then actually ask it to turn on the layer and start the map as well based off that. So quite cool. So we're starting to see that the breakdown of different slope that's found across the site. Let me just ask it to turn on the slope layer, please. So obviously you could click it on, but if you just want to do this as well, turn the slope layer on, please. Should start to see that popping up on the map. So we've now got the slope layer on alongside this. We've got some 3D. So you can obviously click on these to get the different kind of slope degree rating in there. But really interesting that we've now got a table giving us the breakdown, the amount of hectares, and also giving us a bit of description about how that might impact peatland restoration and the effects that might have. So quite fascinating. And, you know, that's just a couple of the simple examples. You can also maybe ask it, just tell me the licensing data for the peatland and carbon class data. So if you want to get a bit of metadata or information about the data sets you're turning on, you can also ask it to kind of give you some of that metadata back. We'll hopefully see that pop up in a second. Oh, I've given the NDMI, but you can start to see, yeah, it's coming back with licenses and descriptions about that data. So you have that kind of whole, if you're not sure about anything, you can ask it and it comes back with that, which is really, really nice. So I'll do one more example, conscious of time, and we'll just jump across to Ian's example in Land's End, and we'll just do a couple more examples in here. So let's explore that. Again, got a nice description of this particular property, triple SIs affecting it, put it into 3D mode. Again, we can start to see the map here, agricultural land use, etc., etc. Let's jump into the insights. Let's maybe kick off with habitats, just have a look at what that might look like. Oh, community as well is quite interesting. So we can also start to look at things like OS green space, where that is on the map. Green infrastructure, so where there's accessible or non-accessible woodlands for the community. So let's put that to MS raster. So again, we can start to see whether it's accessible in green or non-accessible. They give us a breakdown of that. Got things like the Crow Act 2000 access layers, again, open roads. Index of multiple deprivation is quite interesting. So again, looking at the different kind of deprivation boundaries and how that might impact the community in this area, and the breakdown of that as well. So you can obviously query it and ask it about this as well, which is really interesting. I'll just finish up on the, let's go for habitats, because there should be some good stuff of that. So you've got the Living England habitat map, which finds key habitats, including dwarf shrub heath, improved grasslands, acid calcareous neutral grasslands. So again, that's giving you that summary, but obviously you can then just use the AI to get more information out of that and to query it kind of further, which is quite cool. Let's do one more AI example. Just to kind of expand on maybe not just using public data, we also take public data like OS Open Rivers, and we do things like the River Meander Index, which is a kind of a score of the sinuosity, so how kind of curvy that river is, and whether it's natural or not natural. So you could say, turn on the sinuosity layer. Let me just put that to 3D mode. So this, we haven't got that many here, but this starts to show us all the kind of the water courses and each watercourse has got a seniority score. So if it's close to 1, that's relatively straight. If it's kind of close to 1.5, then it's more kind of natural, meandering. So I could say, give me a breakdown of the seniority scores in a table from 1 to 1.5, and what does this mean for natural capital and management? I'll just run this last one just to give you an idea. And give it a couple of seconds. It's coming back. So seniority scores, the length, etc. So you can see how many kind of watercourses, the total length, descriptions, and also kind of telling us a bit more about what those scores mean. So great to have it on the map, but how do we kind of interpret that and get information from it? So a couple of examples there. I might just see if there's one last one. There's any flooding on this site. There's a little bit, but no, that's fine. We'll probably leave it there just because of time. But that's great. I'll stop sharing. We can always jump back in and have a little bit more of a look at the data or the use cases. But I'll pass back Tessa, and we'll kind of go to the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. It's awesome.